Good morning, DCC. Welcome to all of you. We are so excited that you've decided to join us here online during this very strange time where we're all having to make so many adjustments. We are so excited that God is still showing himself to be sovereign. And we're so glad that you've come to meet us here online for DCC online today. Right now, we want to make you aware of a few announcements. Right now, we've decided to form some response teams to help to ensure that all of our community members are properly serviced. So we've created 4 response teams. You can join a team, or if you need help, we would love it if you'd get in contact with us. Let us know whether you need help or whether you'd like to join us. Please email Christina B. at dulleschurch.org. Again, that email address is christinab@dulleschurch.org. Also, we want to remind you that there is a very special blessing in your giving. We need your weekly support, especially at a time like this, where we're trying to ensure that the church has as many resources as possible. So your weekly giving and your generosity is greatly needed at this time. Just also remember that whenever the church is closed, even for one Sunday, we feel that closure. We feel that change in revenue. So also take into account that there's a special blessing related to your giving. John 3 said that God so loved that he gave. So please give through either dulleschurch.org or our app at Dulles Community Church, which is available in the App Store. Also, we want to make sure that you know that we have online prayer twice a week. Join us online right at about 20 minutes each time on Tuesday at 9 a.m. or on Thursday at 8 p.m. Download Zoom and look for the link in our emails. We'd love it so much if you'd join us. Also, we want to ensure that you are aware that we are so happy that you are here with us. And as we pray through this very difficult time for our global nation, we ask that you would remain connected to us. Again, we want to say welcome, and we hope that you enjoy our service today.
Good morning, DCC. Wow, last week I started by saying what a crazy week it had been, and last week feels like a month ago. So much has changed, obviously. From day to day this week, a lot has changed for our nation, for our world, in the medical world, from what we've been hearing. I think on Tuesday and Wednesday, things started getting serious coming out of Italy. And things have been changing here internally for DCC. We have been moving our church online. And so first, I want to welcome you. It's so nice to have all of you together like this, DCC. I want to encourage you to make comments or ask questions. We'll do the best that we can to engage you and even pray with you here online. And for those who are listening in or watching for the first time, welcome. We want to just consider you part of our extended family this morning. So my head this week has really been telling me to do a talk this morning about the economy, about worries or the concern about what's happening with the economy. And this is an internal thing that happens with me a lot. My heart will prompt me one way, and that's usually quieter. Usually my head is louder, and I've felt this compelling urge to really tackle the anxiety that we're feeling about jobs and the economy. I know that we're going to get through this virus. I know people are sick, and we're concerned about them. We're committed to flattening the curve. We'll know in 9 or 10 days, hopefully 8 or 9 days, how we've done flattening the curve and protecting our medical system and infrastructure. I have no doubt that we're going to flatten the curve and get through this virus crisis. The real concern I'm tempted to focus on right now today is the economy and jobs. And yet, and I'm not saying we won't, I think in the days ahead we may address that certainly, and I'm sure we will. But I'm going to follow my heart today, that prompting of God, to not focus on what's loudest right now and what I think is really at the forefront of our concerns. And I'm going to just steer us in the direction that I feel God's been steering me to talk to you about today. So I want to talk about what God is doing and what we should be doing. Where is God in this? Was God so focused on, the U.S. election and the debates that he just didn't notice that a really serious virus had broken out in China, or that it had spread to Italy the way, it's obviously just a couple days ago, deaths in Italy surpassed the death count in China. Is God so distracted by other things happening that he's not engaged? I mean, our minds, that sounds silly, but our minds kind of go there, what is God thinking, or where is God in this? And I want to tell you that I am confident that God is in all of this. God is not he doesn't cause bad. We know that in God's story. It's just clear over and over and over. God can't be the author of bad. It's not in him. And yet, in this broken world we live in, he works within bad situations and challenges and crisis to do all kinds of things. And I think there are two things that he's doing. I'm sure of it. I believe he's doing two things right now in our hearts and minds. He's attempting to. I think in our country's soul. I think around the world. And so I want to focus on those couple of things right now. First of all, I believe he's slowing us down. And this can be so hard for us. We are designed by God to work, to be creative, to be productive, to make things, to earn things. We're instructed by God to save for our future. There are all kinds of warnings about laziness, that God's favor isn't with the lazy. We are hardwired to work and be productive. We are. But it's not sustainable if that's all we do. If we're just busy, and I'm speaking from just experience here. I tend toward being a workaholic. That's something that affected my marriage many years ago. Amy and I had to really focus on that, and I had to hear her. I like running organizations, and I'm always working up new ideas of things that can change the world. I know what it is to be confronted with the reality that there are times that God needs to slow me down. And I believe God is slowing us down right now. If we work and produce and make and earn, and that's all we do, it's just unhealthy. It's unhealthy. Even a good thing, good things have a limit to being healthy. Even a good thing like work, there's a limit to it being healthy to when it becomes unhealthy. And Amy and I, we barely got in this trip to Hawaii. Little did we know, just a couple weeks ago, we got back for this big anniversary trip we did. And we visited this little town with the ocean on one side and the mountains immediately right behind the houses and the shops on another side. This sleepy little town had this slogan. We saw it everywhere. It was on T-shirts and it was on buildings. Slow yourself down. We just saw it all day that we were there, and I ended up with a coffee mug, and I came home with this mug. Slow yourself down is all over the town, and we felt it. I mean, everybody was chill, and I told Amy, man, I love this. This is easy to do. It's easy to slow yourself down in a place like this. It really was like paradise. But in the real world, it's hard. If we're honest, we have difficulty practicing this ancient, early in God's story practice of Sabbath. And it is a part of the creation story. It's one of God's commands, instructions to us, that we work into the rhythm of our lives, stopping in order to listen, to take in creation, to engage with one another, and to engage with God. And I believe, I sensed it about 5 or 6 days ago. I don't know, just it hit me. I said it to Amy. She said, I've been thinking it, and I've said it to some of you. You guys were saying it back to me. I told my parents, I think God might be just slowing us down. And they said, yeah, we've had the same thought. I think it's crossed all of our minds this week, and I want to just own it. We can't sustain work, and busyness, and fulfill what God's called us to do. And that's really what I want to talk about this morning. The temptation is to talk about another anxiety, like we talked about last week. And if you missed last week, you can catch up on my message about anxiety, having God's confidence and peace, his real confidence and peace when there's uncertainty or crisis in front of us. And his ultimate dream for us to be anxious for nothing, to be so full of his peace. You can catch up on YouTube on last week's message. But as tempting as it is to talk about something else that's making us anxious right now, this virus or more acutely the economy and jobs, I want to just start with where I believe God has us as a starting place. And that is that it's not sustainable to live the pace of life that we live often. Life breaks down. We break down when we don't slow down. And this is in my notes, and it's from personal experience from many years ago, and it's a reminder that God brings up for me often. And I am sure that God is using this to slow us down and to bring a little bit of, even in this crisis we're in, a little bit of the paradise that God has in mind for us, that we would be engaged more with him, better able to listen to him, to his heart, and better able to connect with one another for our own good and for our doing good and extending God's nature and God's plan to others. And so that's the second thing I want to just focus on here for a little bit. The second thing I believe God is doing is he is showing us what he dreams of ultimately for love. And I want to talk about love being viral. And I know it's tempting when you talk and you present to be poetic and try to be cute. I'm really not trying to be cute here with something so serious as this virus, but I believe ultimately God designed love to be viral. It's supposed to go viral. That was the plan. That was what was supposed to work all along. He cares about what we wear and what we eat. Matthew 6 is a perfect example of Jesus saying, don't worry about tomorrow. He's talking to an audience who has good reason to be anxious about their economy literally tomorrow or next week. In many regards, Jesus' audience in Matthew 6 is an audience of poverty. It's an impoverished community that he's speaking to. And he's saying to them, don't worry about tomorrow. Don't worry about what you'll wear, what you'll eat. I'll take care of that. I really will. If you commit your way to me and what matters to me, I will make sure that you are provided for. Today, what I'm calling you to, Jesus says in Matthew 6, is to seek first what matters to me, what matters to my kingdom, what my kingdom is about. And so I want to talk about the story of the Israelites in the Old Testament, and that can immediately just sound boring. The words Old Testament can kind of tune us out, and I used to do that in mentioning the Israelites. The Old Testament, and I'm going to try to say this quickly, sum up the whole story of the Old Testament in just a minute or two here. The story of the Old Testament is the story of a group of people that God called to be his blessing to the whole world, to every nation. That they would be, the Israelites would be God's voice, God's hope, God's love, God's mercy, God being a God of the future and anticipation, that they would be God's voice to every people. But they failed generation after generation. They would accept the call of God, and then inevitably they would become distracted with their own wants, their own priorities, their own agendas, their own possessions. And then when famine hit or an enemy would be attacking, sure enough, time after time, it just happens. It's the cyclical story of crying out to God in their need. And I think that's happening to us right now. If we're honest, some people in crisis just tune God out and run away from God or shut the door on him. A lot of people lean into God in crisis. And I think a lot of us are doing that right now. Like, God, what are you saying? You have my attention. Not that God is causing harm, but in this circumstance where our government just can't prevent viruses from emerging, and our government can't pay everyone. Everybody's salaried. There's only so much a government can do. God, who are you as my provider right now? What are you trying to teach me? This is our nature. We tend to lean into God when we're facing challenge and uncertainty. And our temptation, if we're not careful, I've just been sensing this for days now, our temptation is to lean into God right now so that he'll fix our job crisis, our job anxiety, our national or global economy. And I want to caution us against that today. Of course it's important. It's a big concern of mine. I've been concerned about this all week. It was my temptation to make it the subject of this talk today. But we so easily become like the story of the Old Testament, the people of the Old Testament, where life is good, we have what we need, we don't really need God right now, and immediately we've stepped away from what matters to him and being engaged and being the vehicle, the agent in this world that God wants us to be of extending him into others. When Amy and I were dating, one of the big regrets of my life is we broke up 3 times in the 3.5 years we dated. We broke up 3 times, and Amy's version of that would be that I broke up with her 3 times, which I guess is the right way to say it. I met her and just fell for her. I thought she was pretty, and more than anything, I loved her personality. I loved her authentic care for people. Anybody and everybody that she knew or that was in her life, she just cared for. And I found that so attractive. And so I just started pursuing her. She was not so attracted to me. We had fun together. We started hanging out. We didn't call our hangouts dates, but we laughed. And she would, if she were here, she would say that she thought I was nice and enjoyed our time together. But physically, she was not attracted to me, which is humbling to say here, I guess. So it all changed at the end of the summer that we hung out all summer, and Amy made a big decision to stay home from college for us. And it shocked me. I just couldn't believe it. And I'm not advocating for that. If one of my girls was telling me they were dropping out of college for a boy, or if one of their boyfriends decided to quit college for love or for one of them, I think I just wouldn't allow it. But it is part of our story of what happened. And we were in her driveway when she told me that she wasn't going back to school. She wanted to really invest in us and this idea of us becoming a team and maybe becoming married, getting married and changing the world together kind of thing. And for about an hour, I was the happiest I'd ever been. Just the relief and the love and the excitement. And it lasted about an hour. And then what set into me was fear, like, uh-oh, this is serious. And that began a cycle in our dating relationship where I became so afraid of marriage, of commitment, really of God's plan, that I would just distance myself and we would break up. And it took a couple of guys, a couple of my friends. One's name was Steve. During one of the breakups, Steve asked Amy out and took her on a date to see the Harlem Globetrotters, which still makes me laugh to say that. I did not laugh then. There was nothing funny about Amy going to see the Globetrotters at the Patriot Center with Steve. But I would realize, like, oh my gosh, I could lose her. Like, it gripped me. This back and forth set in on me where I'd be afraid of marriage, I'd be afraid of God's plan, this commitment, but then I'd be afraid of losing her when we weren't together. And man, we can so easily, and that's really the point, we can so easily be like the ancient story of the Israelites. And so I want to end today looking at the New Testament dream of God, because we're people of the New Testament. And in the New Testament, Jesus tells us the story of the night before his death. John tells us the story of Jesus the night that he's arrested. He prays in John 17, this remarkable prayer of all the things he could be praying. He prays these words, and I want to read from John 17:20. Jesus said, "My prayer is not for them," meaning his disciples, his immediate disciples. "I'm praying also for all of those all around the world and in the future who will believe in their message about me, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you." Jesus is praying for us, the church, that we would be so united, that we would be so together, we would have this closeness and unity. And he goes on to say that the world may believe that you sent me. I have given them," meaning us, believers in him, Jesus says, "I've given them the glory that you gave me, Father, that they may be one as we are one. I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world," and he repeats this again, "then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them, even, Father, as you have loved me." And what Jesus is telling us here is his dream. This is God's master plan, his dream for us. Humans have the ability, and this is what's scary about Jesus' prayer. He could pray anything before his death, before his arrest and crucifixion. He prays that you and I would be so one that the whole world would be drawn to it. The whole world would know. This is what's scary about this prayer, this dream of God's, is that we know that humans can hurt humans. People hurt people. And we say it a lot at DCC, hurt people hurt people. And if you're human, you've been hurt by another person. And that is a scary, scary thing. Humans can inflict hurt. We can inflict destruction. We can bully. We have this ugly ability to inflict hurt and harm to others. And it makes us put our defenses up and our caution up, and we walk carefully. And so here we are talking about this prayer of Jesus. I know we're in this crisis of this virus. I believe before we try to address the future and walk into the future, Jesus wants to level set this. He's trying to slow us down, and he is trying to help us understand that his master plan for us before anything else is that we would become people of love. Love was intended to be viral. He is praying here, presuming that love is viral. It is not something that's supposed to happen statically, like from one person to another, and then it's over. Love is over. It was just an act. Love has the effect that when you receive God's love, you end up giving it. That's what's supposed to happen. It should soften us. His love should soften us enough that we immediately want to extend it to others. What happens in a busy world, what happens in a world where we're not taking Sabbath, we're not resting, is that we end up fixated on our own wants. We end up living out this experience, this reality of being people who are distracted. We end up, in effect, muting the viral effect of love. We want God's love. We want to be reminded of heaven, that we have a heaven waiting for us. We want to be reminded that God cares and that God loves us. But we end up muting or limiting the viral effect when we're so distracted and living such busy lives. I believe God, I'm convinced of this. DCC and everyone joining us today, I'm convinced that God is right now before everything else. We've got economies to be concerned about, and jobs and job losses and unemployment skyrocketed this week. You're so tempted to focus on that as the first real concern, and I am too. I'm admitting that to you. I'm following God's prompting here this morning to tell you that before we address any of that, he needs us to be healthy people who have slowed down enough to engage one another and catch our breath and think of this world that we're in. How ironic that we're living in a world today where we're being distant from one another in order to protect one another. It really speaks to what we are humanly, to the human calling of God. We're practicing care for each other these weeks, and who knows how long into the future. By staying away from each other, we're protecting each other. The term social distancing has bothered me since I heard it, and it's bothered our team. We've discussed it a few times this week. I don't think we're social distancing. We're doing physical distancing, but I believe we're socially connecting. I think it's happening before our eyes. Amy came home last night with tears in her eyes, and I was like, "What happened?" And she was like, "No, nothing. It was good. Like, these are good tears." She said, "I've seen people, families outside." She had gone for a walk. I think she drove to one of our church trailers, I think. And coming back, she said, "I just saw so many families, like so many. I saw front doors open and people on their, families on their front porches. I saw families taking selfies together and teenagers like next to mom and dad. We just don't see these things." And I believe we're sensing it. I believe in the anxiety that we're feeling about what's happening in the world around us. I believe in the quiet, underneath all of the concern and all of the worry, we're recognizing that God is doing some level setting here. He's slowing us down, and he's calling us back to his dream for us. That before we solve job issues and we think about how we're going to address logistics of life, he'll take care of those things he promises us. He wants us to seek first what matters to him and his kingdom. And we're at a crossroads right now. In these next few hours, I think we have decisions to make. Are we going to be people who lean into God so he can fix the urgent and he can fix the crisis? And when our job is secure or we're back to work, then we kind of temper our passion for God again, if we're honest. Or are we going to be people who say, I trust this promise that he will take care of my future. He will take care of my needs and what I wear and what I eat, like Matthew 6 says. If I seek first what matters to God and his kingdom. I believe that's what he's doing right now, DCC. I'm convinced of it. And this is as much for me and my family as I'm using these words to challenge you. God's dream is for us to be, we talk about being for the Dulles area. We've been using this, it's become like a mantra here this week, that we want to be for one another together. Maybe you've seen that in social media already. We're saying it a lot. At DCC, we've narrowed our focus. We want to be for one another together. And that is a step toward oneness. We're physically distant. And so it brings to mind, like, what does that look like right now? I want to just challenge you to this idea. We can't be for you and I as individuals can't be for everybody, of course. And as the needs arise in the days and weeks ahead, I have this idea, this vision that we would be for, each of us would be for one person. Imagine if all of us were each for one person during this crisis. The love that would extend to this world. Jesus began his church, and in Acts chapter 2, we have this amazing, beautiful picture of Jesus creating a church that is so unified. It's what he prayed for, that they were together, they had all things in common. And I want to read here from Acts chapter 2, verse 42. They devoted themselves, these early believers, it's several thousand of them at this point, to the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, eating together, to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs being performed by the apostles. And then this, all the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. So in a time of need, at a time when there were people in physical need, economical need, we live in a world today, and maybe this is a part of what God's level setting, and that can be scary. If we're honest, that can be scary. Maybe God is bringing us back to this dream being played out where we would be people so concerned about the needs of others, we'd consider selling some of our own property to help meet those needs. This is love going viral. Just in a few chapters, Bible scholars tell us that the church had grown from 3,000 to probably close to 100,000 in that first city of Jerusalem. Like love going viral, taking care of the needs of one another around. Before I pray with you, I want to tell you about something bad that was happening when Jesus in John 14 said to his disciples, I'm giving you my peace. I don't want you to worry. He said, the peace I give you is a gift that the world cannot give. I'm here to give you a peace that the world can't possibly give you. This is John 14:27. I give you this peace as a gift, so don't be troubled and don't be afraid. What's happening right now is Jesus is, if we took the time to read this whole story, Jesus is telling his disciples about his impending crucifixion. He's telling them that he's going away and there's going to be some hardship and there are going to be some things they don't understand for a little while. And in this context of telling them what matters most to you that is about to be taken away from you for a little while, I'm telling you, I'm giving you a peace the world can't possibly give you and offer you. So I want to pray with you about this, and I want to just unite right now. I'm hoping some of you have been commenting online or maybe expressing thoughts or even prayer requests with us here together this morning. We're not finished with that, but I want to pray that God has his way with us in this crisis to level set us, to slow us down, and to show us that his dream for what's going to happen after this virus and in the rest of 2020 and 2021 and into the future, his dream is that we be people who go viral with love, extending his mercy and hope and good to those who are anxious in this world. So let me pray with you. God, I just ask that you simply do this. We have so much to be concerned about. I mean, people are telling us in the news and historians that some of these events and some of the state that we're in, we haven't experienced since World War II, since the 1940s. We're not pretending it's not happening this morning, God. We're not trying to block out the reality of what's in front of us. What we're doing is trusting you enough today to allow what you're doing first, what your kingdom says is most important. We're seeking that first today. We're allowing you to slow us down, and we're allowing you, God, to make us people that are aligned, that are properly aligned with being people of love. We want to be answers and hope to broken people and hurting people. And we trust that you will take care of our future. You will take care of our finances. We commit this to you today, Jesus. Amen. I love you guys a lot. I want to tell you a couple of things. We're going to continue doing this. We're going to be doing more of this online like this. We'll be updating you more through video. We're really turning DCC into an online space. We are going to be studying together online and offering ways to talk and interact together, so stay tuned for that. I have posted on DCC's Facebook page my own personal Spotify playlist, my worship playlist, if you'd like to subscribe and listen to the worship songs I listen to. And also, one more thing, we're going to be gathering online to pray together. On Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. and Thursday evenings at 8 p.m., Alton and Kumar's going to be joining Alton to lead this. They are going to be leading us in prayer every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. and every Thursday evening at 8 p.m. All are invited. You can tell your friends. We would love to spend 20 minutes in each of those days praying together. I love you. We are going to get through this. I am confident we are flattening the curve, and I'm more confident that God is positioning you and me to be the healthy agents of love for a world that is beginning to think more about him. I really believe that people, for a world that is looking for answers and for God's reality. You and I want to be healthy people who are engaged and have space and margin for others and are connected to God. And I know that we're going to be changing the world together because of that. I love you, DCC. I'll be talking to you soon.